Under the scorching summer sun of the Connecticut suburbs, Matthew Harrison, a wealthy retired financier in his late 60s, sat alone in his luxurious silver Tesla Model S. He tapped his thumb impatiently on the steering wheel. The air conditioning hummed, struggling against the oppressive heat. Accustomed to things always going his way after a successful lifetime, Matthew now found himself stuck with a flat tire, miles from the comforts of his opulent mansion. After several attempts to call for assistance failed due to no signal, he sighed, accepting the reality that he would have to wait. Just as annoyance began to set in, Matthew saw a figure approaching from the end of the road. It was a boy, perhaps 13 or 14 years old, wearing a faded t-shirt and worn sneakers. He walked with a determined air. Matthew watched as the boy squinted at the car, then gave a polite but confident nod towards him. "Flat tire, sir?" the boy asked, his voice steady. "Yes, that's right," Matthew replied, feeling a strange mix of relief and unease. "I was hoping someone would come along, but my phone has no signal out here." The boy smiled slightly. "I can help," he said, kneeling down beside the tire without hesitation. "My grandfather taught me how to change a tire last summer. Do you have a spare?" Matthew pointed to the trunk, watching the boy open it and retrieve the necessary tools. The boy worked quickly, his hands moving with a quiet confidence that seemed to belie his age. Standing there observing, Matthew felt a strange humility creep in, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. He wanted to offer the boy something in return, but the boy barely looked up, entirely focused on the task. After a few minutes, the boy was finished, wiped his hands on his jeans, and stepped back. "All done," he said simply, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips. Matthew reached into his wallet, pulled out several bills, and offered them to the boy. "Take this. I really appreciate your help." But the boy took a step back, raising his hand politely. "Thank you, sir, but I don't need anything. I was just happy to help." Stunned, Matthew stood there, money still in his hand, watching the boy turn and walk back down the road. The brief encounter had touched him in some way, though he couldn't quite articulate why. Now alone, he tucked the money back into his wallet, got back into his car, and watched in the rear-view mirror as the boy's figure grew smaller in the distance. Throughout the remainder of the drive, Matthew's mind kept returning to the image of the boy. There was a quiet dignity about him, a confidence that didn't come from money or privilege, but from something deeper. That night, sitting alone in his luxurious mansion, Matthew couldn't shake the image of the boy walking away, with nothing but a smile. He sat in a leather armchair in his study, surrounded by shelves of books he rarely opened. The room was silent, save for the gentle ticking of an antique clock in the corner. His dinner, a perfectly cooked steak and asparagus, sat untouched on a side table. He couldn't stop thinking about the boy. Over the course of his life, Matthew had met thousands of people, business partners, employees, investors. Most encounters revolved around negotiation, favors, and deals. There was always an exchange, a price, or an expectation. But this boy, a stranger, had helped him for no reason other than simple kindness. He leaned back, taking a sip of scotch. The memory of the boy's confident smile returned to his mind. He didn't look like he had much, Matthew thought. The worn sneakers, the faded clothes, the dusty hands, they all told a story. Yet he carried an integrity that seemed increasingly rare these days. The next morning, Matthew couldn't resist the urge to find the boy. He didn't know why, but something inside him felt unfinished. Perhaps it was guilt, gratitude, or just plain curiosity. Whatever it was, he found himself driving along the same stretch of road, his eyes scanning for any sign of the boy. Hours passed as he stopped at gas stations and small diners, asking anyone who would listen if they had seen a boy matching the description. Most shrugged or shook their heads until finally an older woman behind the counter at a small cafe spoke up. "Sounds like you're talking about Leo," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "That boy's always helping folks around here. Lives with his mother in Millbridge." "Millbridge," Matthew repeated, making a mental note. "Thank you." The town of Millbridge was about an hour's drive away, nestled in an old industrial valley. The drive was pleasant enough, but Matthew barely noticed. His mind was swirling with questions. What kind of life did this boy lead? What kind of family had raised someone like that? Upon reaching Millbridge, the streets were quiet, with modest homes and small shops. He asked a few locals about Leo and was finally directed to a small house on the edge of town. The house looked old but neat, with a slightly sagging front porch. Matthew parked his car, hesitating for a moment, unsure of what he would say. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. It opened a moment later, revealing a woman in her 40s. She looked tired but kind, her eyes sharp and curious as they assessed him. "May I help you?" she asked. "Good morning," Matthew said, clearing his throat. "Forgive my intrusion, but I believe I met your son yesterday." "Leo, is it?" "He helped me change a tire." Her expression softened immediately. "That sounds exactly like my Leo," she said with a small smile. "He's always helping people." "I just wanted to thank him properly," Matthew said. "He wouldn't take anything from me yesterday." She nodded, stepping aside to invite him in. "He's in the backyard. You can wait inside." Matthew stepped inside, observing the modest setting. The furniture was old but clean, the walls adorned with family photos and a few hand-drawn pictures that looked like Leo's from when he was younger. It was a far cry from his own home, with its gleaming surfaces and expensive artwork. Yet there was something about the space that felt warmer, more alive. He followed her to the backyard, where Leo was mending a section of the fence. The boy looked up, surprised to see Matthew. "Hi, sir," Leo said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What are you doing here?" Matthew smiled, feeling strangely nervous. "I wanted to thank you again. You helped me when I really needed it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it." Leo shrugged, his expression relaxed and genuine. "It was no big deal, sir." But to Matthew it was a big deal, and he was determined to show it. Leo leaned against the fence, his eyes curious on Matthew. For a moment both were silent. The boy's calm demeanor made Matthew feel slightly off balance, as if he were the one being assessed. "I don't think you realize what a big deal it was," Matthew finally said, breaking the silence. "People don't usually help strangers without expecting something in return." Leo tilted his head, looking puzzled by the logic. "I don't see why not," he replied. "If someone needs help and I can give it, why wouldn't I?" Matthew was struck by the simplicity of the boy's logic. He looked past Leo at the yard. The fence was patched with different pieces of wood. The grass was uneven and sparse. Behind the house, a dilapidated swing set tilted precariously, its chains rusted. It was clear that Leo's family didn't have much, but they were making do with what they had. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Matthew said genuinely. "Your mother must be very proud." Leo grinned, glancing toward the house. My mom works very hard. I just try to help where I can. Matthew was silent for a moment, absorbing the boy's words. He thought of his own childhood, spent in a home not unlike this one. His parents had worked tirelessly to make ends meet, teaching him the value of hard work and perseverance. Over the years, he had drifted from those lessons, caught up in the pursuit of wealth and status. Now standing in this yard, he felt a strange sense of nostalgia and regret. I'd like to do something for you and your family, Matthew said finally. Leo straightened up, his expression reserved. We're okay, sir. We don't need anything. It's not about need, Matthew insisted. It's about what's right. You helped me, and I want to give back. Before Leo could reply, his mother stepped out onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Leo, come inside and wash up for lunch, she called. Then her gaze shifted to Matthew. Would you care to join us for lunch? It's simple fare, but you're most welcome. Matthew hesitated, unaccustomed to such an invitation, but the sincerity in her voice left him no room to refuse. I'd be delighted, he said, following her inside. Inside, the kitchen was fragrant with fresh bread and roasted vegetables. The table was small, surrounded by mismatched chairs, but it was set with care. Matthew sat down, feeling strangely out of place in his neat suit amidst the humble setting. Leo washed his hands at the sink and joined them, his easy smile never fading. As they ate, Matthew found himself drawn into their conversation. Leo spoke about school, his friends, and his dream of becoming an engineer. His mother shared stories about the community, speaking with quiet pride of the people who looked out for one another. Matthew listened intently, feeling a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. Despite his wealth and success, his own home felt cold and empty compared to this modest one, which was filled with laughter and genuine connection. After lunch, as they cleared the table, Matthew turned to Leo's mother. You've done a phenomenal job raising him, he said. He has a kinder heart than most people I know. She smiled, her eyes bright with gratitude. Thank you, sir. He's a good boy, but we've had our struggles too. We've learned to appreciate the small things. Matthew nodded, his mind already buzzing with ideas. He didn't want to overstep, but he couldn't leave without doing something for them. This family had given him a gift he hadn't even realized he needed, a reminder of what truly mattered. That afternoon, Matthew left their home with a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in years. Driving back to his mansion, he began making plans. This wasn't charity. It was about honoring the boy's selflessness and the family's resilience. Leo and his mother deserved more than patched fences and worn furniture. They deserved stability and recognition for the strength they showed every day. The next morning, Matthew made numerous calls. He contacted former colleagues, contractors, and suppliers. By midday, a plan was in motion. Within a week, trucks and workers began arriving at Leo's house. Matthew stood in the sidewalk, holding blueprints, directing the renovation as Leo and his mother watched in astonishment. You didn't have to do this, Leo's mother said, her voice trembling as she watched the crew unload supplies. We were managing just fine. Matthew turned to her, his expression sincere. You did more than manage. You thrived. But you gave me something I didn't know I was missing. Let me give back. Leo was quieter than usual, standing beside his mother, a thoughtful look on his face. Matthew knelt down slightly, facing him. You taught me something, Leo. Helping people isn't about money. It's about being present. I want to be present for you. Over the next few weeks, the house underwent a dramatic transformation. The sagging porch was replaced with sturdy wood. The roof was repaired, and the rusty swing set in the backyard was replaced with a new one. Inside, the walls were painted, the floors were refinished, and the kitchen was updated with modern appliances. At first, Leo tried to help with the renovation, carrying boards and sweeping up debris, but Matthew insisted he take a break. Your job, Matthew said with a smile, is to enjoy being a kid for a while. Still, Leo couldn't resist sneaking out to watch the crew work, his eyes bright with curiosity as he observed them measure, cut, and build. One of the workers, a burly man named Joe, noticed his interest and invited him to help measure boards. Soon, Leo was asking questions about tools and construction, his excitement contagious. Matthew watched from a distance, a warm pride swelling in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt he was doing something meaningful, something that extended beyond himself. The boy's energy reminded him of the ambition he had once possessed, before life became a blur of boardrooms and stock portfolios. One evening, as the sun was setting, the project was nearing completion. The family stood on the porch, amazed by the transformation. Leo's mother turned to Matthew, her voice thick with emotion. This is more than just a house now. It's a home. I don't know how we can ever thank you. Matthew shook his head, his voice gentle. You already have. You reminded me of what life is truly about. Family, connection, and purpose. I think I'm the one who should be thanking you. The final day of the renovation felt like a celebration. Neighbors stopped by to see the changes, bringing smiles and small gifts, freshly baked bread, a jar of homemade jam, and even a potted plant. Leo's laughter echoed through the yard as he ran around, showing his friends the new swing set in the freshly painted rooms. The house, once tired and worn, now vibrated with life. Matthew stood on the front porch, leaning against the new sturdy railing, watching the scene unfold. He hadn't felt this kind of joy in years, a simple, unadulterated joy that came from seeing others thrive. Leo's mother walked over, an iced tea glass in her hand. She offered it to him with a smile. You did more than fix a house, she said softly. You gave us hope. And I think you found something for yourself, too. Matthew nodded, taking a sip. Yes, he admitted. I spent too many years chasing things I thought were important. Money, status, influence. But none of it felt like this. None of it ever filled me this way. As the sun began to set, Leo joined them on the porch, his energy still high. He looked at Matthew, his expression thoughtful. Mr. Matthew, he began, I've been thinking a lot about what you did for us. I want to do something like that someday. I want to help people. Matthew placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, his voice steady. You already have, Leo. Your kindness started all this. Don't ever lose that. The three of them sat together, watching the sky turn from gold to deep orange. The warmth of the day lingered, but there was a deeper warmth, one that came from connection, gratitude, and a shared sense of purpose. When it was time for Matthew to leave, Leo and his mother walked him to his car. The boy's beaming smile and his mother's teary one were etched into Matthew's memory as he drove away. This wasn't the end, he realized. This was just the beginning of a new chapter in all their lives. The following weeks brought more changes. Leo's newfound curiosity in construction blossomed into a passion. Matthew arranged for him to spend time apprenticing with the workers who had helped renovate the house. Leo soaked up the knowledge, eager to learn. In turn, Matthew found himself returning to Millbridge time and again. Each visit felt less like a trip and more like coming home. He no longer felt like an outsider in their lives. He was now part of something bigger, and for the first time in years, he felt content. The story ends where it began, in a small town with a big heart, where a simple act of kindness from a young boy reminded an older man of life's biggest lesson. It's not about what you have, but what you give.